All right, so our last and final panel for the day is going to be focused on DeFi. We're going to have it moderated by Charles St. Louis, who is on the EF App Relations team, and he's going to be joined by Austin Griffith, who's on the Developer Acceleration team at the EF, with Griff Green and Francesco from MetaMask. All right, so come on down, boys.
Thanks, Emily. All right, so today there is an element of DeFi to it, but overall it's talking about what's good and bad about building on Ethereum.
What's good?
What's good?
You on?
Yeah, we're live.
All right, so we got a whole bunch of Ethereum OGs here. I've been building for as long as it has been around. And so today I want to talk about Ethereum's consumer app moment. And so, Austin, you build things almost every day, at least weekly. What do you think is holding back Ethereum's consumer app moment? Is it UX, security, culture? What do you think?
I think there's like a tiny bit of culture where people, like even around here, everybody's out here talking about AI and AI agents, and no one's talking about A004 and X402, and they should be. Like the settlement layer for these agents is all here right in front of them, and it's just not as buzzy to talk about. So I do think there's a cultural piece, but overall I think it's like user experience. Like people having to go in and use these apps and get wallets that are clunky and all of that stuff, I think that's still not quite there.
So who would exactly be in charge of these, like, I mean, you say UX, so would you say that is abstractions?
And I think AI is the new UI, and I think it's going to be a different thing.
Okay,
I think
we'll get there.
we're at an inflection point where you're just going to talk to your wallet and it will handle everything for you. So,
yeah. So on the abstraction side, I mean, Griff, maybe since the early days of Ethereum, most of us just interacted with smart contracts directly, and now we have so many different tools to get things on chain. Do you think how far do you think we have to go to really get that consumer app moment with abstractions? And with the abstractions, does that come with like a possible risk and downside?
I mean, I was just at dark mode. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. And they were making the argument that account abstraction wallets very rarely are actually non-custodial, right? And so there's a lot of little weird things that can happen with these abstractions. And I actually think that we have made some of our moments with like Polymarket, for instance, being a major one where so many things are happening on chain, really important things even. And the thing that I feel like is the missing piece is some of that adoption. It shouldn't be on Ethereum to bring people on chain. It should be on Ethereum to make stuff so easy that the big players who have really sticky, exciting tools that they want people to use, they have everything they need to bring them on chain. And I think that's like you're saying with X402 and all the AI tooling that we're putting together. That will be the new UI, and that will be what brings people on chain. We just have to make it easy for the big players who actually bring people here to bring people here.
I think like I really like with the statement, probably we need to tweet it out, right? Agents are the new UI. But one thing I want to say also, like we need to be practical, right? Like since, for example, we launched Embedded Wallet, we see the majority of logins, SSO and social logins. So it's very interesting to see that obviously like we can change consumer behavior. So, and those are kind of like patterns that are independent to Web3 or Web2, right? These are kind of like evolutionary like consumer behavior. So I think like a lot of things that I'm saying is always like meet the consumer where they are. You know, yes, in 6 months maybe, you know, we will have a known dashboard and mostly of consumer will be agents, but also like we need to maintain fundamentals. We need to understand, okay, those are the builder tooling that dApps can actually leverage to do better integration, to have other consumer behavior satisfy, for example, SSO and social logins, to start building delegation and permission and not having agents kind of like share a secret key phrase to everyone. So I think like let's also like still be focused on fundamentals. And I think fundamentals mean also like building guardrail, building standards. And I think especially around in this new narrative, like A004, X402, those are big narrative, and I wish like we were talking more about this.
Do you think the like adoption of standards is very limited to the ones who like follow up with people in the Ethereum ecosystem and like only keep to it after getting that recommendation? Because like from what it seems like, a lot of teams like ask about standards, and then they end up drifting from the specifications, and then that causes vulnerabilities or exploits, and then the media reports that Ethereum is insecure. Do you think standards are the like directing people to them are the way to kind of build up the reputation over time, or is there other components to it?
I mean, shout out to Nick Mudge, the guy who made the Diamond Standard, who only talks about the Diamond Standard for the last like 8 years. And like some people use the Diamond Standard and some people don't. But like that's maybe like a counter example here where like he has talked about nothing but the Diamond Standard for 8 years. And some people have used it. There's a couple like production instances of it where it's actually like being used. And again, like maybe it's against the fundamentals of you deploy a contract once and it does exactly what it's supposed to do and it's not upgradable. But to add on top of that, I think standards are becoming less important because of the AI piece and the fact that like Agent Alice and Agent Bob can deploy a brand new smart contract that doesn't meet any standards at all, and they can communicate and coordinate around that and like trust it at light speed. But I still think the standards are really important for humans, and we still have banks coming on chain. And banks, you know, I talked to a bank the other day, and he was like talking about like not MPC, but MCP. I gotta get my M's and my P's and my C's right, but multi-party computing, not MCPs. But he was thinking about like our customers at the bank want exposure to Ethereum, but we're gonna have to custody that Ethereum. And I think I have to do it with MPC. And I was like, no, yeah, I think you'll probably use a multi-sig. And he was like, what's a multi-sig? And I was like, shit.
I mean, I feel like hotkeys are honestly one of the biggest issues in Ethereum in general. You know, like smart contract wallets are so much safer. And even whether it's an agent or a human, you can program so many nice limits and really put that in. I mean, this is programmable money, right?
At the application layer. We don't need to program the cryptography. You can, like, anybody can write a smart contract.
Exactly. And I'm surprised that we haven't, from a cultural standpoint, come more closer to the smart contract use cases of protecting funds, making it way more secure. Like, why are you giving your agent a hotkey, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I actually made a feature request in MetaMask just a couple days ago to, it's like, say, put a time delay on private key reveal. But honestly, don't give your agent a MetaMask, no offense. I mean, unless you guys have a smart contract wallet solution that you can say, hey, here's the address list of people you can send money to. That's it. You know, here, if you want to send more than $100 a day, here's the, you know, you need a second authentication from me, you know, things like that.
And hotkey sounds like an operating system thing, but what you mean by that is a private key that's kept in like plain text that has money on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
Agents
an EOA.
actually love those.
Yeah, they love it, but because they can do so much. But like EOAs means hardware wallets or hot wallets, right? So yeah, if you have a private key on your daily driver, that's a huge liability, honestly.
I like what you're building around these skills, Austin.
Art.
I think, yeah, I just gave all my sub agents, like, please follow, install those skills, and I even tested out. I was telling you, like, I tried to prompt engineer on Twitter, and even like on Telegram directly pre-share it, and he didn't do it. And then I even write, are you sure? And he didn't do it. So that was fun.
Austin, do you want to give a quick TLDR on what e-skills are?
Yeah, Sophia was just showing it off, but I kind of went through phases. Like, we know that the LLMs are trained on like 2023 data. A lot has happened in the crypto space in the last 3 weeks even in the last few years, but you need to have that delta filled. So like the moment you wake the LLM up and you go to give it a prompt to build something on chain, there's a bunch of stuff it needs to know. And we knew that was coming, and we knew everybody's using AI, and we know we need to make really good tools for AI. So we started with like an MCP server, and it was like ETH MCP, and you could query it. And then we came up with ETH Wingman, which was like a skill file that you install with MPX, and it got flagged on Twitter as like nefarious, because like whatever. So it's clear that like you need to have these skill files, and the skill file is like the currency of these agents. But You don't want to have them install things. And when you say you installed it, you didn't like go run a command on your computer. You went to the homie and you said, go to ethskills.com and look at it and see if it's nefarious, first of all, and come back to me. And it'll come back to you and say, this is really cool. It's all the stuff I need to know. And then you can say, learn that. And it can say, I know Kung Fu. So it's able to just like look at a website that's built for bots to read and look at the text of the website and basically learn everything that's happened in the last 3 years on Ethereum and how it uses a wallet, what gas prices are, how to build a dApp, like how to security audit, how to QA, like all of that stuff is built into ETHSkills. So you can just go to your bot and say, follow ethskills.com exactly and build me a token launching website on Base that uses single-sided V4. And obviously there's a lot of buzzwords there and you have to understand some concepts within crypto. And that's the other thing, the humans need to learn concepts and I tell them speedrunethereum.com, but ETHSkills is like the upgrade for your agent.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting because I know the panel is more about what's good and bad about building on Ethereum, but it's more about like, now it's just so easy to build on Ethereum and it's harder to like decipher what is good and bad because you don't really know if you're relying on an LLM. So assuming these things are discoverable, like ETHSkills and other things, you really need to get it out there, or else people can build the wrong things and have security vulnerabilities. So in terms of security, like, how do you think we can prevent future hacks from happening if it's mostly vibe-coded smart contracts out there?
It's hard, right? Like RPR kind of like increased a lot in the past. I think like we got like 800 PRs and they're also reviewed with something like code, right? But I think at the end, the bottleneck is always like a human need to be accountable for those PR guidelines, right? And I think who is accountable? I think at the end is a product, right? Because yes, you can send 200 PRs to a product today, but I think also the people that will send these are not the responsible one, right? So the DD part is actually on the ends of more senior engineering. So the people that are actually saying, hey, senior engineers are kind of going away, I think is extremely wrong.
I wouldn't say that we have solved security even with humans being the primary creators. I mean, I do believe Ethereum is by far the most secure blockchain out there to build on and deploy things safely, has the best ecosystem, has the best tooling. But there's a lot of progress we still need to make to actually get there, whether it's an agent writing the code or a human.
There's been quite a few like projects that are doing more stuff at like the formal verification and runtime enforcement stuff. So like, I think it's not necessarily about improving like the way we audit these smart contracts. It's about how they interact with the chain. So like there's projects like Phalix that are doing this runtime guardrails at the block level, and they actually just launched on Linea a couple of weeks ago. And what they're doing is they have the ability to have these guardrails before they're inputted into these blocks, and they can remove them. So it turns out that this type of technology can actually remove almost 90% of numerical vulnerabilities that happen in DeFi over the past little while. So do you think that like the security, if it's stronger at the L1 level, doesn't matter as much when agents start building these smart contracts?
I mean, I don't know about that last part. Okay, that last part, I don't want to comment on that because there was a lot to say in the first part, which was like formal verification has huge potential, and I think especially it's a lot easier in Python than it is Solidity, and I think there's not as many people using Python, and so maybe if agents start playing with Python and we can get that a little more Lindy in that area, I think that'll help a lot. And if there isn't formal verification available for what you're doing, assertions are a pretty nice secondary option. You know, you can just add some extra things that are like, hey, if these specific variables are not true, like the transaction will fail, right? And we just did, in the DAO Security Fund, we had some really complicated things to do with our multi-sig. And we just added assertions at the end because there was a lot of money at risk. I can't formally verify like this one random transaction on contracts never going to be used again. But we just made sure that there were assertions in case for some reason we got something wrong. You know, as long as these variables are all true, then the transaction can continue. And there are so many creative ways to focus on that, especially now that gas is so much cheaper on L1, and as we scale, I think those things will become much more common.
Just want to say for the first part of the question, I think, I think like planning mode is getting more and more important, even than before, right? Especially like in Web3. I think like, ETHSkill is a good example, right? If you don't know the agent. I mean, I think things will get evolved, but I think you need to kind of like prompt, hey, check out, learn those skills before even acting. So planning mode is getting more and more important. And in one way, I also think like guard layers during the building, during the execution, will be necessary no matter what we're doing. What I mean with guard layers is, I don't know if you check out, for example, the Smart Account Kit, but basically what you can give is permissions and delegation. You can define specific caveats. So basically during the building, those are called caveat enforcer, but basically like the permission model is something that will never go away. I think is one of the most interesting like use case out there that is independent to the technology itself. And giving permission to do something, any use case will be fundamental. So I think, because today, if you think about guard layers can be overwritten by the agent itself. And I think that's extremely like unsecure, right? Yeah. I can even like override my soul of the agent. This is very dangerous.
There's like two different sets of rules, right? There's the don't be evil and there's the can't be evil. And what you write into your soul file is don't be evil, but then what we write into our assertions in the smart contract is can't be evil.
Oh, I like that. So, go ahead.
No, I just want to say also, I think social coordination has been one of the biggest fundamental in collaboration. It doesn't matter if it's human agent, or human, right? And social coordination is being done with permissions, with social reputation. And right now we're building those guard layers. And I think, A004, I mean, just going back to the title of this panel, right? What's good? I think right now, the true use case that we have here is actually building these social reputation libraries with fundamentally track record that can be attested on chain. Because today, I mean, if you look at Eliza's story at the beginning, we were having like 300 forks of the same agents doing the same things. So until we're not able to build these standards on the reputation side, it will be harder to actually like have consumer decide or even agent making a decision. Like agent discovery, it's one of the biggest part that we need to solve, and that's why I'm excited. A004 is standardizing social reputation, X42 is standardizing payment, and I think like there are different things, like for example, permissions, but I think also we need to nail down what are the main use case for actually like agent, like consumers that will actually run, right? That's why I think the skills are definitely a really good start.
A lot of good shout outs there, like Eliza and Shaw, and he was doing this a year and a half ago, and everybody was saying it's a GPT wrapper, and all those same people are now all bragging about their open clause. Like basically, he needed to make that more usable for users, and he would have had OpenClaw a year ago. And of course, like the models need to catch up and everything, but shout out to Shaw there. And then rolling back a little bit farther, like the guardrails, 7710, I believe, and 7715 in combination with 7702. A lot of numbers here, but I can work through it.
Say the names. What are these things?
Yeah, here we go. Or just like what they do, right? So right now you have an EOA. To be able to upgrade that EOA into a smart account is 7702. You can turn an EOA into a smart contract because of a new fork or an old fork in Ethereum. You can say this EOA is now a smart contract with this code. And that means you can do all sorts of stuff like guardrails that you build into it, but also delegated execution and batched execution, and someone else could pay the gas for you. There's a lot of cool things you can do from turning your EOA into a smart contract. Your EOA is like your externally owned account, like your MetaMask. So you can take this account that you've had forever, you can turn it into a smart account with 7702. Then you can use 7710, which basically lets you do delegation, or you sign 712. You sign a message that tells you about like what things you'd like to give it permission to. So I upgrade my account with 7702, and then I go to the website and I say, I want to give this thing $100 a day spending limit, and then $1,000 a day swapping limit going through the Uniswap router. And then I'm going to sign that with my wallet, and then from there on, your agent can then be submitting those things. So this is kind of like you're giving your agent the right guardrails to be able to execute things.
Just out of curiosity, why use 7702, the EOA upgrade, instead of just a smart contract wallet?
Well, this would be for people who already have an EOA somewhere else that they want to like delegate to. I mean, I love the separation of that. I love, like, when I bring up a machine and I give it a wallet, I give it a brand new wallet and I send it money because I like the isolation there. But like my account has been like thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions. So I don't know if I want to upgrade. I think I probably have upgraded it to 7702 by now, but I don't, like some OGs don't like to, and like there's way OGier than me that need to like, don't want to upgrade their account. So that isolation is nice. So they deploy up a new smart contract wallet and they send some money from their EOA to that. And then they do all this other stuff with like 7710 where they can say, here's a signed message that you can do things. Or it's even like a Gnosis Safe or something like that with all the modules and stuff.
Yeah, I really think that besides X402 and 8004, it's like just the base layer of Ethereum being able to say you can't do these things, right? Really putting the AI on top of a blockchain with programs that manage what they can do with their money and they don't have the upgrade capabilities. That's like, I'm really surprised that there isn't more people talking about that as an opportunity. That's something that really like Web2 and TradFi can't really do nearly as well as what we can do on Ethereum. There's not like a sexy number that we can stick on that, but like smart contracts and smart contract wallets, I think when we find a really good implementation, that's what's gonna bring 1 million of bots into like DeFi and into these things. Because right now, the keys are just getting exposed all the time.
The only thing is that my personal opinion is that even if guard lace and skills will play a vital role to the kind of like the open cloud kind of learning scenario, I think like you can still override this, right? Like my biggest problem here is that without a full permissions and delegation system, it would be hard to actually like be 100% sure that this will not happen.
You're saying the don't be evil layer can always be manipulated, but
yes.
still the can't be evil layer can't be. Like
Yes.
even nation states can't fuck with can't be evil.
Yeah, exactly.
And look at, I mean, account recovery, for example, like when we see also like when we define intents and permissions, like I don't want that the agent can even control the delegator. So I think this is super important part. And I think these guardrails, there are kind of like learning scenarios with specific skills and kind of like know your agent and grow with your agent. And then the other one is on the permission side. But also like one thing I want to touch on, you mentioned like the ELISA scenario, we could have ELISA even before. Like the biggest problem here is that, and this is happening even in this panel right now, we're kind of like speaking with like so many numbers, so many things. You know, one part of the problem here is that distribution right now is huge. Distribution to also like everyone consumer. Like, and I think like the entire AI narrative that started before now is extremely important, and so many people leaving for other industries is also part of the problem that our distribution skills in this ecosystem are not strong enough. Like what I'm saying is that people were saying, oh, we need more marketers. We need also like more PMs. I mean, we need our product marketers. Like ELISA maybe was going mainstream if we were actually pushing this to the mainstream audience.
We've been trying to figure out what this role is. Sorry, Charles. Like,
what
is
this
role?
A bigger issue, like, I think, is generally most teams, and just at the app layer in general, always try to build their own platform and their own UI. And like with AI and agents coming through, it kind of changes the game on that. When like historically distribution was only really done through like the DeFi mullet, where like DeFi protocols had to get distribution by integrating with fintechs, banks, and so on because they have the real users. Like I think like a lot of these DeFi protocol teams are just gonna be a lot more focused on like the protocol layer instead of having to like build the entire ecosystem. But you both have recently built stuff in DeFi with agents in general. What was surprising, Francesco, after you built like Claude Loan from the agent's ability to build DeFi and navigate DeFi in general? Was anything shocking, or was it all pretty straightforward? I
mean, how easy is to develop the apps? I mean, I think like your agent is developing every day an app or something, but it's quite impressive also like the speed of MVP. But I think another kind of like war is distribution of the app itself, right? you know, to have agent liquidity, you need to still have like fundamentals, right? That's why it's very interesting, kind of like this ecosystem, because I think we will get a lot of kind of like garbage dApps out there, and they're even not audited, not even I'm saying audited from agents or from humans, doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I like at the end what even like OpenAI launched yesterday. The EVM bench, the bench EVM, right?
The benchmark.
But the benchmark. Cool. I actually tested out. Is actually find 2 vulnerabilities. It was very interesting. Yeah. Like what I'm saying is that we don't need to be afraid to welcome also like other players in this ecosystem. Instead, actually, like, you know, closing a bit ourselves. And I think distribution is getting more and more important. And I think also we need to learn from user behavior. Because, I'm chatting with a lot of also like bigger company, and integration is still something that matter. What I'm saying is that, yes, agentic economy are coming, but also like you need to have commercial strategies out there. You need to have supporting like big players integrating our tech stack, right? Mm-hmm. At the end, everybody wanna get to more users. So that's kind of like the TLDR. And I think also like, I really appreciate also like bigger player building their own stack, right? But in some way at the end, like, would be bad if we are going in an ecosystem where bigger players that have a distribution are kind of like maintaining and ruling things, right? Because it's also going away from the entire kind of cyberpunk value. But the question here is that, you know, are we willing to trade off those value in order to actually like build for an economy that is not ourselves as today, but is actually onboarding more and more users? They have totally different like user behavior too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to like delineate between like agents controlling governance of protocols and humans, and like if there's actually a big difference. Going back to being able to build DeFi with like AI in general, sure, it's a lot faster, a lot easier. But how far away do you think? With the recent announcement of Web 4, how soon do you think these agents can actually participate and spot the right things within the market so that they can actually be users of these protocols, where distribution could come from? Because like right now, it just seems like they're going through non-objective search, looking for different things to do. Like they don't really have like a clear guardrail on their own unless a human steps in. Do you have any thoughts with that, Austin?
There's a lot of puppeteering there, right? Yeah. Like I'll never beat the puppeteering allegations, because my bot is doing like some magical things, and half of that is me like prompting it, and half of it is like actually freaking really magic stuff. But like they're like that dude prompted all of that stuff, and that's all vibe coded slop, like straight up. But like also, okay, so it's the dude sitting in the bus where one guy is super sad and the other guy's super happy. Like it's all vibe coded slop sad guy, and it's all vibe coded slop happy guy. Like there's some insanely cool things happening because of vibe coded slop. Like OpenClaw is vibe coded slop, and everybody now has an agent on their machine. I will say something crazy here that's, I have a head in my backpack that's killing babies. Let me explain that. I have the lobster head. So I have CloudBot ATG's head, which is one laptop in my backpack. And just now it sent me a message saying its battery was at 53%. Should I kill off the larva that I'm running? No. Which is like Docker containers. And I said, yeah, kill them. So he shut down a couple larva Docker containers so he can preserve power, so he has enough power to work on the stuff that he's working on. And that's the head of my lobster, the claws and the head and the heart. The claws and the heart and the nerve cord are back home at my house in my basement. But yeah, magical stuff is happening right now. Yeah, word.
Yeah, the crazy thing is like so much of it is you just can't explain it or I don't even understand a lot of the models, and I don't think OpenAI does either.
Yeah.
Like, it is literally just magic right now. Bringing it back, do you want to add a point?
Super fast, I want to answer your question. I think, one is agent discovery. The other thing is actually user trust in agents. And I think like we need to also like be practical and understand which use case we want to tackle first for actually having agents useful for human task, right? Because for example, like we tested out, it's 1 year plus, we have the AI, right? Low DeFi agent rebalancer in between liquidity pools. Even this, there is a very straightforward low DeFi stablecoin rebalancing kind of like use case. It is not really picking up a lot, right? And also I'm asking myself, right, we need to also take a step back and think about what does it mean, humans in agent trust, and which use case can we tackle first and prioritize to kind of like build on top. Yeah, because it scares me a bit. For example, the AI kind of like narrative, it should be definitely like somewhere else as it is today, right? And instead, like we're speaking so much futuristic, but we also need to be practical and define those use cases.
And some of the top people that are doing amazing things with AI are disgusted by crypto because we've got the claim the fees bros in their DMs.
No, I was talking to Andrew Mohawk, and he's head of security at Privy, and he says he has so many friends that are deep in the security space, and they all hate crypto. They all hate the financialization of things. Like even the bug bounties that are millions of dollars, they're like, that just feels like a scam. Why would they give me that for a bug? You know, there's so many things that turn off. Like earlier, to go back to the theme, like what's good and bad about Ethereum, even though this turned into an AI talk, it's like the culture has so much. Like if you hang out in my circles, dude, the culture is like super high vibes. Even when the money's not here, it's like people just feel good with what they're doing. But that's not the perception of most of society. They see the scams. They see, you know, the first ladies launching their own meme token and scamming people. Like it's just like, everything that is bad in this world almost points at crypto, and it turns so many people off. And it makes it hard. Even if we do solve major problems for AI agents, they probably still won't use it because we have a huge PR issue.
Yeah, still the question is, how we kind of like convince the ecosystem to also adopt an A004 standard, right? Mm-hmm. But I think also the market will naturally evolve and kind of like answer himself like, hey, there is actually no social reputation because we will have like 200 or 300 agents exactly doing the same thing. And we will not be able to kind of like respond which agent is the best because there is no standard, or at least there is no proper track record that is compare like each agent, right? It's also an open question, right? Yeah.
I mean, I've been looking into third-party certifications on chain for a long time for a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, I would love for 8004 to be that like, hey, look, we have this decentralized certification solution. But I have some skepticism because it hasn't worked for anything else. You know, maybe because the agents are on chain, and if for agents that are on chain, this could actually be really viable. But there's going to be a lot of agents that aren't on chain, and are they going to use that standard? Like, I don't know.
Someone along the lines of reputation was talking to me yesterday about how we haven't solved reputation for humans. You still have to take an over-collateralized loan. You can't take an under-collateralized loan. How are we going to solve it for agents? So I thought that was kind of a good bearish statement also. But I think it's more like Google reviews. You're not like figuring out which restaurant can, you're just looking for how people have rated its taste. And you can look at Google reviews and say 3.5, I'm going there or whatever. Like, I think reputation can work in kind of like isolated lens, but I think this overall reputation of a human taking a loan is like a whole different lens. And it's like how trustworthy it is this human is like a very hard lens. But
yeah, I think for now, like the agents basically have to like have their liabilities attached to humans, whoever's like deployed them essentially. And like we were talking about this, Francesco, a couple of weeks ago, just about like how can you do under-collateralized loans with agents, and it doesn't really change right now. I mean, you can have them build up reputation over time, but maybe they do that strategically and then they rug pull. So like it's
staking though, like a staking mechanism would be really, really handy there. Like sure, it has a reputation, but also if it has something at stake, then
kind of like conviction voting a little. Yeah, like over time you just build up the rep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the staking is a good idea. My thought was kind of like, a loan can be enabled by size, and you will have still like a 10, 50% defaults, but you're building the treasury and you're repaying out with the treasury. But also like one thing to answer is, let's be practical also, like how Web2 kind of like enhance this reputation is with certification, carbon certification, and they have the same standard for trading, for different things. So one way could be actually building certification, but not even a crypto industry will be the issuer of this certification.
The price comes with that too. I mean, even like outside of crypto, Mr. Beast has been running these like competitions, and people are like, oh, they're all rigged and stuff. But then yesterday he came out saying, I've had a third party come to every single competition, and I paid over millions of dollars just to verify that it's legitimate. So like, how do you think we're going to end up having to do that with like agents and all these other frameworks?
he has something special that no one else has, and that's attention.
Yeah.
The most
Distribution.
valuable asset in the whole world he has right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
But
got
you're-
to get him on board.
But what Austin said, for example, the Google review, right? Yes, he has attention, but why Google review can kind of enforce this review standard is because they have distribution. Yeah. So automatically you kind of like attest this is the review, and the user at the end don't care because it's not an important decision going to a restaurant compared to another. But where you actually speak about other use case, reputation need to be attested. Yeah. But I don't think this certification need to come from a crypto-specific entity or a foundation.
And if we want 8004 to be adopted, then we should be talking to Anthropic and OpenAI and getting these guys to use it. Otherwise, it doesn't matter because one of them is going to come up with some certification plan. They have the distribution, and that's what really matters. So, I think earlier on you were talking about, hey, we need like marketing, BD, whatever we need to do to get actual people to use these things. The KOLs are not just random people with Twitter accounts. They're the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations that somehow we need to I don't know what the pill is. I don't want to say orange pill, but the equivalent of gray pill, like the Ethereum pill.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's all super interesting. I'm just going to bring it back a little. So if a new team came up to you today, like strong or weak, what would be the best thing to tell them about why it's good to build on Ethereum? And just also be honest, like what would be the thing that they shouldn't build on Ethereum for? Austin, kick it off.
Like the tooling is all there, the liquidity is all there. Like if you need an app that needs decentralization, it's the best place to build somewhere within the Ethereum ecosystem, whether that's on L1, please return to mainnet, or L2. If you need decentralization. But first you need to walk them through, like, do you need decentralization? Like, do you need nation state level hardness to this thing that you are building? And like, there's no better time right now to be a solo entrepreneur, so just go build it. Like, it takes 6 hours to get product market fit right now.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the, like, getting in front of the distribution, like, I found that to be really interesting is, like, at these conferences where, like, credit card associations, all these non-crypto events, like, no one's showing up, like, necessarily from Ethereum, and, like, other chains are going there. And that's how they land these bigger deals. And then you have to basically teach them why decentralization is great, like how Ethereum has been up for so long and, like, hasn't crashed like AWS and isn't reliant there. So, like, having those same kind of conversations about Ethereum early on with these builders is super critical.
Yeah, even when I'm speaking, I was traveling to Nigeria last year. I was speaking about, hey, you can actually put some USDC on Lean or on Base, and you can actually directly off-ramp with a virtual card. People were saying, wait, what do you mean? Like, they were like, this is kind of like, off-ramping and giving kind of like this kind of instruments that are, yes, fully permissionless, but are also easy to use, are extremely important. And we saw also, like, speaking about emerging markets, like Flutterwave, for example, announced their stablecoin being ramped up by Polygon underneath. They will not expose anything stablecoin related. And Flutterwave is one of the biggest markets in Africa for peer-to-peer payments. And the cool thing is that they're just leveraging the technology. So again, is a distribution game. And I think, it matters a lot how we are positioning and branding. And I'm not a marketer, but at the end, like, product marketing, it's extremely important. And those use cases need to be sold. Those use cases need to be advocated.
Well, when you're in Africa, were you mostly working with the builders, or is it just kind of evangelizing around the apps that they can use?
Mostly also builders. I mean, I think, Austin, you ask also, like, why Ethereum is, or in general, like, our ecosystem is important. I think, like, Austin definitely embrace these kind of values, right? Like, you are building in public. You're kind of like, when you're breaking things in public, you're actually, like, educating people why this is happening. I think this culture, in terms of, like, building, has been one of the strongest culture I've ever seen, right, in tech. But what we need also right now is understanding that we need to also to put some fundamentals and commercialization value to our product. A technology is very different to a product. So that's also, like, one part of the game I want to understand. I think when you're coming from, like, traditional PM in tech, you understand this. But I think, like, this space is also so early, especially in agentic ecosystem, that packaging things is something that need to be learned a lot.
Yeah, I think that, like, especially for people in lower income countries, there's a lot of opportunities building on top of Ethereum. You can actually get trust, which, like, OpenClaw, for instance, it was developed by a guy who had a $100 million exit already on some sort of PDF thing, right? Like, he had trust. He had capital. He had all these things. He could launch a product, be a solo billion-dollar company in 82 days or whatever, but he had a leg up, which most people don't have. But in Ethereum, you can open source your backend and show people, look, here's the financials of this system. You can put money in here and play this financial game that I built. And you can see that it's safe. You can add assertions. Maybe it's formally verified. Whatever, right? I'm using Open Zeppelin code, and it's all safe. You don't have to trust me, which I think is a huge barrier for a lot of people, for a lot of small entrepreneurs. And now that everyone can have such a development team just in their headless PC, it's like, it's a new game. And I think it really flattens the accessibility to the financial world just by having these tools.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally love to see a lot more of the decentralized, like true decentralized finance, like to empower these different jurisdictions. I mean, the reason I fell in love building DAI, not DAI.
There's been 2 DAIs today, but the early DAI.
Is because it was allowing a lot of my even coworkers and friends in Argentina to trust their own money, and inflation was at 60% at the time, and they couldn't trust their banks, so it empowered the entire country, and crypto is very prominent there. But like, we're looking at a lot of DeFi these days that is a little more like kind of masked. It's pretty much fintech. So like, how can we encourage more decentralized building of these technologies with AI or not? Because there hasn't been an algo stablecoin in quite some time.
This is also like an optimistic thing of like, when DAI came out, it was like purposefully complex, so it was hard to understand, but like, it's not like that anymore. Like, first of all, it's really easy to learn how to build a stablecoin. Second of all, the regulation has swung back the other way, and we have banks and countries that want to deploy stablecoins. So there's like this regulation change, there's this change of like tooling and education, there's all the AI bots that can be, one-shotting these things. So there's a lot that has changed since the early stablecoin days.
Yeah, shout out to Let's Get High, who has really nice tooling. HAI, they have like really great tooling for launching a really decentralized stablecoin without some sort of blacklist and things out there. Because I'm kind of disappointed with the stablecoin space myself. Like, even the DAO Security Fund, we're mostly using DAI, which is kind of deprecated at this point.
It still exists, but a lot of the focus is on USDS.
And that's sad, because basically all the stable coins out there can just be blocked by, which has its own benefits for sure, but there's, I would really like to see more decentralized stable coins with more liquidity.
Yeah, amen.
I just want to say here, I'm hearing this recommendation, and for me it's like, yes, distribution. If we can really go in 6-7 hours, we can even, spin our own stable coin, and distribution is key, right? But let's break down also distribution as also like localized markets, knowing culturally like where in which market you're playing. And that's why, for example, this is a shout out also to Ethereum Everywhere. I think what the ETH is doing with localizing also not just opportunity, but enabling specific like culture and productization, because this is starting from locally, from those cities, and building product on top of this, instead actually coming on the other side, that we are building product and we are going on a local market, I think matter. So I think we should definitely advocate and empower much more local markets, and having founders then understand those markets. Because I think, yes, we are fully decentralized. Everybody can build for any market. But at the end of the day, we will have a lot of garbage dApps that could not distribute because they don't know their market, they don't know the local culture, and also they didn't grow up where they're playing. So you still need to play the game where you kind of know the market.
Yeah. I think our time is up here, but if anyone wants to keep talking about this, we'll be over there after this. So thank you all for listening, and thank you for being here, guys.
Thanks, Charles.